Good afternoon. It's Thursday, the 6th of April. I'm Yael Shir, and this is IBA News, broadcasting live from Jerusalem. A soldier was killed and another injured in a car ramming attack near the settlement of Ofra this morning. A short time ago, the soldier was identified as 20-year-old Sergeant Elchai Taharlev from the community of Talmon. Taharlev's funeral will take place this evening at 6 o'clock at Mount Herzl's Military Cemetery. IBA's Margot Dudkevich filed this report on the attack before the soldier's name was released for publication.
The two Israelis were standing at a bus stop near the entrance to the settlement of Ofra on Highway 60 this morning when a Palestinian terrorist ploughed into them with his vehicle. A 20-year-old Israeli was killed and another lightly injured. Soldiers quickly captured the Palestinian terrorist after his car landed in a ditch behind the bus stop. Security forces and paramedics who reached the site said efforts to revive the critically injured Israeli failed, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. The second Israeli, a 19-year-old, was transferred by ambulance to Hadassah Hospital in Mount Scopus.
We got a call about a terror attack in the section of Ofra. We got to the scene. After 2 minutes, we started to treat the injuries, and unfortunately, we had to pronounce the person one is dead, and the other one was taken to the hospital to continue treatment.
Palestinian media reports identified the terrorist as Malik Hamed, a 21-year-old resident of the nearby village of Silwad. He was bound and blindfolded and handed over to the Shin Bet security agency for questioning. Hamas praised the attack, saying it was a fitting response to crimes committed by Israel against the Palestinians. Just days ahead of the Passover holiday, security forces are beefing up their presence, with hundreds of police and border police already deployed in and around Jerusalem's Old City, prepared to deal with any unrest. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
Border police deployed at the entrance to the Cave of Patriarchs in Hebron this morning arrested a 15-year-old Palestinian teenager after they discovered a knife hidden among his school books in his backpack. Police said the teenager was handed over to security officials for questioning, noting that his arrest occurred during a routine inspection of Palestinian teenagers passing through a checkpoint. The Arab world is willing to do everything it can to bring Israelis and Palestinians together, Jordan's King Abdullah said at a joint press conference with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House yesterday, after the two discussed regional issues. Trump said the U.S. is committed to preserving its strong relationship with Jordan and added that he is working hard to create a peace deal between Israel and the Palestinians. The two leaders also condemned the chemical attack on Syrian civilians, and President Trump criticized former President Obama for his failed foreign policies, saying he had inherited a mess. The U.S. president also called the Iranian nuclear deals one of the worst deals he has ever witnessed.
The issue we discussed was the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is essentially the core conflict in our region, and the president's early engagement is beginning in bringing the Palestinians and Israelis together has been a very encouraging sign for all of us. And I think, sir, it was that initiative that allowed us at the Arab Summit last week to extend through the Arab Peace Initiative the message of peace to Israel, which we all hopefully will work together to make that come about.
And I have to just say that the world is a mess. I inherited a mess. Whether it's the Middle East, whether it's North Korea, whether it's so many other things, whether it's in our country, horrible trade deals, I inherited a mess. We're going to fix it. We're going to fix it. The Iran deal made by the previous administration is one of the worst deals I have ever witnessed, and I've witnessed some beauties. It's one of the worst deals I've ever witnessed. It should never have been made. It was totally one-sided against the United States and, frankly, against much of the Middle East. I will do whatever I have to do. They have a deal. It was, some people say, not done properly, even in the form of its finalization. There was no vote from Congress. There was no real ratification.
Head of the PA security forces was served a $250 million civil lawsuit when he arrived at JFK Airport in New York yesterday over his alleged involvement in the torture and killing of a Palestinian American man in 1995. Despite a history of inciting terror, the U.S. allowed Rajoub to enter the country, where he is slated to speak before the Israel Policy Forum. Rajoub, who is considered by many as the next in line to succeed Mahmoud Abbas as president of the PA, is accused of playing a major role in the arrest, torture, and death of Azam Rahim of Dallas, Texas, who was abducted by Palestinian security forces while visiting his hometown in the West Bank 22 years ago. The suit was filed by Rahim's family. This was the first time that Rajoub, who today heads the PA Olympic Committee, has ever visited the United States. In Gaza, Hamas has reportedly executed 3 Palestinians accused of collaborating with Israel. Reuters said the men were hanged, and it was part of a campaign to persuade any Israeli recruited agents to come forward for a more lenient punishment. The 3 men hanged today were apparently not connected to the recent assassination of Hamas senior terrorist Mazen Fukaha. Hamas said the 3 men, aged 32, 42, and 55, had been convicted of providing intelligence to foreign parties that helped Israel track and kill Hamas commanders. Since seizing control of the Gaza Strip in 2007, it has sentenced 106 people to death and executed 22 of them. At yesterday's emergency UN Security Council session, world powers put off voting on a resolution condemning the Syrian regime for the deaths of dozens of Syrian civilians in a gas attack in Idlib in order to allow time for negotiations with Russia over the next draft's text. The U.S., Britain, and France said they plan to submit a draft text before the forum, possibly sometime today, if an agreement is reached with Russia concerning the wording. At yesterday's emergency session, diplomats sparred over whether to hold Syrian President Bashar Assad's government responsible for the attack, with Russia warning it would veto the measure.
We know that if nothing is done, these attacks will continue. Assad has no incentive to stop using chemical weapons as long as Russia continues to protect his regime from consequences. I implore my colleagues to take a hard look at their words in this council. We regularly repeat tired talking points in support of a peace process that is regularly undermined by the Assad regime. I will now add this. When the United Nations consistently fails in its duty to act collectively, there are times in the life of states that we are compelled to take our own action. For the sake of the victims, I hope the rest of the Council is finally willing to do the same. The world needs to see the use of chemical weapons and the fact that they will not be tolerated. Thank you.
Today, the IDF spokesman revealed that U.S. Navy SEALs conducted a joint exercise with Israeli Navy commandos, known as the Flotilla 13 unit. The exercise involved Merino speedboats as well as the Sa'ar 5 missile corvette. The commandos performed a parachute jump into the sea and practiced boarding and commandeering a moving vessel at sea. The IDF spokesman said the aim of the drill was to build operational capability between IDF special forces and their counterparts, share expertise, and strengthen their common language for joint operations. Israel is proposing a freight rail link that will connect the port of Haifa to Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the rest of the Arab world. The Americans are already on board with the idea, as we hear in this report from IBA's R.A. O'Sullivan.
Is the peace train coming? Well, Transportation Minister Yisrael Katz believes it is and has been working on the railway to extend the Haifa-Beit Sha'an route across the Jordan River into the Hashemite Kingdom. Katz, who is also the Minister of Intelligence, announced at a press conference that the line could also be extended to Saudi Arabia and the Persian Gulf and provide the Palestinians with greater ability to export their goods from the West Bank to the Arab world. The Americans are interested in the project, and Katz said he has presented it to U.S. President Trump's Middle East envoy Jason Greenblatt last month. If it goes ahead, it will drastically reduce the number of trucks on the highway from the Haifa port to the King Hussein crossing into Jordan. R.A. O'Sullivan for IBA News.
Israel's defense ministry announced it will recognize 6 Israelis murdered or injured in terror attacks abroad as victims of hostilities after an amendment to an existing law was passed 2 weeks ago in the Knesset. They are Shmuel Ben Alal, who was killed in Mali in 2015, Chaim Winternitz and Menachem Farkash, injured in Brussels in 2016, Dalia El Yakim, who was killed in Berlin in December of 2016, her husband Rami, who was injured in the attack, and Lian Zaher Nasser, who was killed in Istanbul in January. Lawmakers approved the proposal that would recognize Israelis injured or killed in terror attacks overseas, carried out by an organization that declared at least one of its objectives was to harm Israel, Israeli citizens, or Jews. The decision will apply retroactively to events from April 1, 2012, and the National Insurance Institute's Victims of Hostilities Division was notified in order to enable the victims and their families to receive all the rights and benefits they are entitled to under the law. In local money matters, shares were down on the last day of the trading week on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, while the shekel was up in foreign currency trading. Here are the numbers. Turning to the forecast, the IBA weather team says tonight will be partly cloudy with a chance of light rain, mainly in the north. Tomorrow will be partly cloudy again with a significant drop in temperatures and a chance of light rain in the northern regions. Here's a look at the highs and lows for the next 24 hours at home and abroad. That's all for this newscast. Join us again on Sunday, same time, same channel. Until then, I'm Yael Shir wishing you a good evening and Shabbat Shalom from Jerusalem.